We are live with High on Hollywood. I am your host, Austin Campbell.
And I am drinking a glass of water. But you can
healthy
call me
son of a bitch.
You can call me Clint Fleury.
Beautiful. Did I already say my name? Who am I? I don't know this week. I don't know.
It says Afro Thunder in the bottom corner of your name.
Yes. And
mine just regular Clint Fleury.
Well, my name is legally Afro Thunder, and I thought we talked about not mentioning that on camera and, making me have to do this again.
Ouch you. Well, it's not my fault. It's right there for everyone to see.
Listen, you weren't supposed to draw attention to it, I'm not legally allowed to talk about it in depth as to why that is my legal name. But suffice to say, people, there's a reason.
Were your parents teenagers in the 60s?
Wakandan drug lords. I have some ties to some pretty interesting
shit
people. Yeah.
Am I gonna get murdered now?
Come on,
is some like Wakandan like death squad gonna jump out in front of me? He's like, you know too much.
You're more likely to get abducted out of a spaceship. I did a thing on Jupiter a few years ago. Bad call on my part. But you know what? I made some friends along the way, and just like the Thermians in Galaxy Quest, which was today, they might just take you and show you things you didn't think actually existed. But
you are my only you are my only hope.
Oh my god. Yeah, just like
I don't know if I could get to that point of that rage. You are our only hope. Like the fact that he went into that cast. The fact that he went into that casting call.
Yeah.
And made up his own language, and that became
like that's
their entire.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was watching. Well, I was in lead up to what we were talking about today. We're talking about Galaxy Quest.
Quest, the seventh best Star Trek film of all time, as rated by Star Trek fans worldwide.
Seventh best. You know what? I
would put it higher than that.
Definitely. This movie was such. Okay.
But I also consider it an unofficial Star Trek film.
Yeah. So I was watching a YouTube video, and that's what he said. He kind of there's a documentary called Screen Junkies, right? From Screen Junkies.
Yes.
That they actually made, and that's what during that filming, he was the basis of their vocalization, and because the director allowed so much improv on set, like. All the Thermians on all the actors, so like Rainn Wilson and all those great actors, basically came up with that entire culture right there, and that was the model for the Thermians.
Right. I was just doing some reading beforehand, and because I haven't seen that documentary yet. Never Surrender, right?
Never Surrender.
Yeah. Never give up. Never surrender. Never surrender. I love that. There's so many good catchphrases in this goddamn movie. Tim Allen is a huge sci-fi fan. Had no idea. I had no idea. And so he was super excited to do this role in this film. But he also gave them suggestions, like the lines that Fred and Guy say on the planet when they land, like the beryllium sphere planet, about the air in the atmosphere. That was Tim Allen who brought that up to the director because it wasn't in the script. He was like, well, when they land, shouldn't they mention whether or not they can breathe on the planet? It's like
that's a huge sci-fi trope. It's very logical, and I love Tony Shaloub's action there.
Well, and he was apparently
it's like it seems fine to me. I was like, what?
That's beautiful.
That is beautiful. That was just perfect timing.
And okay, but that just also highlights the fact the cast in general in this film. You can't not Harold Ramis. Yes, actually, I think it was. It was Harold Ramis who was originally supposed to direct this, right?
He was originally supposed to direct it, and there was he clashed with Tim.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, he wanted a different actor in the role. He wanted an action, like an actor more known for action, doing comedy, kind of like Bill Pullman in Spaceballs. Whereas he didn't want a comedian doing, you know. Yeah.
From what I remember, the production was like way more into they want, like, that's what the big downfall for this movie was. The studio was like the studio was like they wanted a Spaceballs movie, and then they got something way better.
Exactly.
Like Spaceballs, not to downgrade Spaceballs. That's just a different.
I'm a huge Mel Brooks fan, but
it's a different kind of comedy film that they're critiquing here. They're not just like this. This movie is not about critiquing or making fun of Star Trek and its fandom. It is a love letter to Star Trek and its fandom.
I'd say it's a bit of both, because it's still, you know,
there's some slapstick zaniness.
It's about being,
but it's not a parody.
No, not
it's not that satirical like Mel Brooks stuff. Like it's
exactly.
a different kind of comedy.
But what I would say though is they are similar in the sense that this is like the definitive comedic Star Trek, whereas Spaceballs is almost like the definitive comedic version of Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, you know what? Yeah, that's a great idea. Actually, I never thought of that. That's a good.
They're literally, because literally Spaceballs is more geared towards parodying Star Wars. Literally direct. You got Darth Helmet. You got frickin' what's her face is.
Yeah, that's true. It's a different film. It's a completely different.
Exactly. So I mean, Galaxy Quest definitely. I mean, do you feel that this is an unofficial Star Trek film? That I get the sense you do, but I just want to ask you directly. Like, do you feel that?
You know what? If you would have asked me before I rewatched it today, I would have said no. But yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. Today, after watching it today, just laid in bed and woke up this morning, and I just like I'm gonna put it on just before we start podcasting, and I was just doodling on other things and put it in the background, and I just got so tied into it that I just forgot about everything else, and I put everything down, and I had to watch it because it is a compelling story. It embodies everything we were talking about in the last two podcasts. So it has that friendship, that camaraderie, that fantastical story of, you know, just going off into space and having this zany, wacky adventure.
Yeah.
Plus, it also, what's the word? Kind of like goes behind the scenes and talks about like what it's like for the actors as the stars and what they would experience. And that's the whole point of this movie, was to take those actors and say, throw them into space and see what and the actors of those characters would do.
Well, and that's why there's a part of me that, like, when watching Galaxy Quest, this is the closest we're ever going to get to seeing, you know, those actual Star Trek actors in such a meta situation, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like, this is literally the best version of that, because you can't get any closer, because they weren't going to be able to get William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy and everybody to do this weird meta comedy where, you know, but that was never close. You know, that wasn't necessarily the intention from the beginning. I mean, and it was a little more serious, actually, the script from the beginning too. It was called like Captain Starshine or something.
Something like that, yeah.
And then it was totally revamped when the dude one of the producers bought the script, and then was like, I like the concept, but we're gonna change everything about it. You know, like change all the other stuff. So,
you know, and I think it worked out pretty well, and I think, like, the whole script in itself, it was entirely a solid story throughout.
Well, and speaking of that, your Snapchat earlier today, that scene where Tim Allen reveals the truth is honestly one of the most, like, powerful scenes in the film for me. Like, I actually get genuinely emotional.
Mm-hmm. That's Tim Allen acting his ass off, right?
Oh yeah. You were right. That's what I'm saying. You were right. You know,
because usually Tim Allen's always just it's Tim Allen on film. Like you never see him kind of embody a character, but he loved this character so much that that was a genuine moment. And I think I don't know if like Tim Allen ever wanted to like jump into like any more sci-fi roles, because you don't see him getting any kind of like roles in that sense. I don't know if people just don't like working with him or not.
Well, maybe. From what I was reading, he was hoping, funnily enough, that Galaxy Quest would, help him break out, into sci-fi a bit more. And so I kind of feel bad on that front, because it's like, man, nobody took you serious enough to actually invest in you. I mean, it's not like I was ever gonna root for Tim Allen to be cast as a Star Trek captain, but like
I could never take him seriously.
But then again, what if? The thing is, you never know until you see it. Like I've seen Adam Sandler give really solid dramatic performances. That's really swayed me.
That's true. You know what? Because like Spanglish Today is still one of my favorite.
Spanglish is really good. Thank you for saying that. It's a very underrated film, I think.
Very underrated. I loved his performance in that, and it's a film that I just. It's one of those films that just draw me in again, and it's mesmerizing. And you're right; he gives a damn good performance. Like Adam Sandler, when he wants to, he can act his fucking ass off. Mm-hmm. He can act,
and he can carry a film. Same with Punch Drunk Love. Now, to be fair, that was like...
I haven't seen that one.
It is a bit comedic, but he still gives a very serious and very disturbing performance, actually. It's kind of scary. It's like a scary side of Adam Sandler. It's interesting. So I think Tim Allen, given the right script, given the right director, and clearly with his passion for sci-fi, probably he might have been able to pull it off. He could have been like an admiral or something, But
you know what? They just need to give him more of a chance.
They should have given him like a cameo on Star Trek. Just like
something
as a Starfleet officer.
Not even Star Trek. Like just give him. There's so many different properties that he could have
been on different things. I mean, it's true.
I mean,
he could have made an animated Galaxy.
The Santa Claus.
Oh, I know, and those the Santa Claus 1 and 2 are my childhood, man. Like I grew up on Tim Allen. Okay, I really.
And thank you for not including 3 in that.
What? There is no third one, Clint. We don't. I mean,
don't talk about the third one. I'm sorry, but in this house there is a third one, it gets played. And
I love Martin Short, but I've never hated him more. So just annoying. It was just terrible.
A disappointing movie.
It was very disappointing.
I can watch Santa Claus 1 over and over.
Oh, me too, man. And that movie made me cry because what happened was everybody left for Christmas, and I was here for like a week before I got to leave, and then literally I think 2 days before I left for home, I was like, I'm just gonna throw out a couple Christmas movies. I'm going to throw on Home Alone because it's thematic. That movie made me bawl my eyes out. And then I was like, okay, the Santa Claus has to be fine. That movie made me bawl my eyes out. I forgot about how effective the whole like divorce narrative is and how him as a father trying to kind of prove himself and regain the trust of Charlie and like, oh God, yeah, it's just.
That's an emotional movie, and that is a classic Christmas one.
It really
like,
is,
for sure.
Almost, it's like right up there with Miracle on 34th Street now in terms of like
I watched the old black and white this Christmas.
Nice.
Yeah, that was. You know what? I like the old black and white one a little bit more than the colored one. It is just I don't know something to do with it. It has charm. It has a lot of charm.
Yeah, I think so too.
How the fuck did we get on Christmas? It's May.
Because of Tim Allen. It's all Tim's fault.
Damn you, Tim Allen. Okay, well, let's talk about Toy Story then. Or we can just go back to Galaxy Quest.
No, it's because Galaxy Quest really showed that he had range. And it's unfortunate that because it's also a comedy, people really overlook those dramatic moments and those more nuanced moments of acting coming from him.
Yeah.
And because, he's also acting within a cast of so many other phenomenal actors, you just, it's like the whole movie's great. So you don't really pick out Tim Allen when you're, I think when you're watching it until.
Not at all.
It's like, oh yeah, of course he's acting top notch because everyone else in this is super tight. He's opposite Alan Rickman. He's not going to give his worst performance acting opposite Alan Rickman. Are you kidding me? Like,
do you know the tension on set between those two?
I did. They
did not. I don't think it was a tension much between Tim Allen. I think it was more Rickman that was just like a little bit more stuck up about it. Yeah. Because Tim Allen's just a jokester.
Well, and from what I read, Alan Rickman was annoyed that basically Tim Allen's excitement was the quote. You know what I mean? Like just how excited Tim was to be on set or something. I don't know. I feel like that's more of what it was though. That jokey energy, like, or just being a jokester all the time.
I think that's called enjoying your job.
Having fun. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. And then you hear like that Alan Rickman brought more like dramatic weight to certain scenes into the set. And it's like, okay, well that just makes sense because obviously, you know. But then on the other hand, he loves comedy. One of the interviews I watched with him, he's like, oh, you know, I read the script and I do actually like, he loves doing comedies. I mean, he was in Dogma for God's sakes. So.
Oh, Alan Rickman, yeah. He was great in Dogma.
Yes, he was.
Alan Rickman is just hilarious. It's just, but as a dramatic actor and as the role that he was playing, it makes complete sense for him to have that tension and to maintain that tension with Tim Allen on set because it showed throughout it fueled that feud throughout that movie, which, because, you know, Tim Allen and Alan Rickman were supposed to be the Kirk and Spock character, and their friendship blossomed by the end.
that shows the ebbs and flows, the very public ebbs and flows of Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner's, friendship too, and just general this whole movie is basically about William Shatner's, acceptance and almost like epiphany-like realization that he had to embrace Star Trek and love Star Trek as part of his, just part of him.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, at a certain point, yeah, you're typecasted, and now you have to kind of almost embrace that. But there is that lighter side of being that character, is that you could go look out into those fans and see how much joy you brought to them. Like, and we're here talking about exactly what we loved about Star Trek because it has had that longevity, and that fandom has just created this love for the story.
Right. And like, you just made me think too, you know, when talking about kind of when you look out, and I always think, I don't know why, but my mind always thinks to like when I was in Hairspray in 2012 at my high school, and like anytime it came to like the curtain call, the applause, the feeling you get, like, but also not just the applause of like what you did, but also just the feeling of energy, like, you know, there's tears in the audience, people are moved or they're feeling something. It's just knowing that they're feeling something and they're moved by you and by your performance. That is such a powerful feeling emotionally. Not even just, I don't even just mean like, I feel powerful, but like, you know, like you don't know what to do with yourself because you're like, I affected somebody like that. It's like a miracle almost, you know what I mean? And so I can only imagine being an icon like Captain Kirk. And
not even just Captain Kirk. Just think of
any
like
of them.
Now,
any of them.
Any of them. Like, just think about when a child walks up to you and like calls you Luke Skywalker, for example. I mean, that must be just so beautiful to be like, I'm everything to this person.
Well, and you made me also think of like the Captain's documentary, right? And like seeing William Shatner go backstage and sit with fans, you know, and actually just take time to get to know some of his fans, like one-on-one, was really, really, that was really moving too. I don't know. And it's not just him, exactly. Like, I mean, all of them have done this in different ways, and they do continue to, those who are still alive and with us, and those, you know,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't know. You have to really, it's humbling is what it is. It's humbling.
Yeah.
That's the best word to use for it.
And is that the message of this film? Is it to humble you as a fan, or is it meant to humble you as an artist?
That's a good question. I think that's almost the question the film itself presents. You know, it's like, because it also, I think, highlights unknowingly the idea that we were all a fan at one point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We have all been invested in something, but when it comes to our specific fandoms, you know, when it comes to the point of creating and producing within that fandom, I think you'll find a lot of the people who star in these shows are the show's biggest fans. But then, you know, what happens is I think you lose sight of that sometimes. Sometimes I think you do. And I think that's what this movie kind of highlights too. So it's like getting back in touch with the inner fan in you, whatever it is you're a fan of, and not judging that too harshly almost. You're never judging that too harshly, because it's like, it's a beautiful thing. It's not something to be pushed away. It's not something to be looked at like you're crazy because you're a fanatic about this. It's more like, no, this is something to embrace. This is something that actually helps people cope in their lives. It helps them guide them. It helps give them principles. It helps shape them as individuals. And that alone is, yes, humbling, but an incredibly, incredibly influential and powerful ability for anyone or anything to have on anyone.
That is like the most beautiful thing I've ever heard you say. It's like, okay, we need a joke. Insert joke here. Yeah. Get laugh, because like, wow, that's so deep and beautiful. But it's like, okay.
I think because this movie works on levels it doesn't even mean to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to drop it. Yeah, absolutely correct. Because that's the only thing I can say at that point. Absolutely. Yeah.
But I mean, that's one thing. The humor in this film is what, you know, because this could be. I could see how you could make a movie out of this that is very, not necessarily dark, but I could see a more serious take on this. I could. And I think it would, but then it would lose some of that heart, because I think part of the humanity of the film is the humor, and that's the point.
What's the thing? You got to be able to make fun of yourself. And you got to be able to put yourself into vulnerable places to be made fun of. Yeah. And when you're doing something like making a story about traveling out in space, it doesn't have to be serious all the time either. Some of the greatest moments of Star Trek is the zany,
the silly stuff. Yeah,
the silly stuff. Like some of those episodes,
you know,
the holodeck shenanigans. Yes, I love them. Every single one of those episodes are great. You have to have that bridge of comedy within your serious moments, because it gives those serious moments a little more impact. To humble yourself to a point where you're just like, okay, I can laugh at this. I can laugh at myself. Maybe I'm just being stupid, and you know the reason why you're laughing is because I'm not making any sense, or I need to learn from that.
Right. And do you think like it could be like kind of how Star Trek is also about showcasing the and well, not even just Star Trek, sorry, I'm just gonna say sci-fi, because this is just a sci-fi thing in general. Yeah, just damn it. Oh, there we go.
What are we talking about again?
I'm trying to swish my coffee around. It sound gross. No, the human palate. The human palette of sci-fi. Because that's what sci-fi does, right? It takes human issues, human ideas, and human concepts, and metaphors, themes, long-form storytelling.
It just explodes them. It's like, yes, the human element is in here, and we're going to take it and bring you to a world of fantasy.
And I think if you lose humor, then you're losing a fundamental piece of humanness, right?
That's right.
I think that's why.
I think that's what's wrong with a lot of the movies that come out today, or a lot of like the fandom that's out today, is that they're taking their fandom a little too seriously, and they're not looking at what is quirky or zany or just weird about those characters and about those storylines.
There's nothing better than Patrick Stewart's horrible French accent in Picard when they have to go under disguise. Like that's, but it's such a good throwback to like,
shit,
they've had to do that kind of shit in previous.
Yeah, it was loved that episode.
It was great. I was in love with that.
It gave Patrick Stewart just something. That's what I liked about Picard. It gave Patrick Stewart something to do other than be just Picard all the time.
Yeah.
He was a different kind of Picard, more open, more fluent, more excited to be on this adventure and do these kind of weird, wacky, zany things. Just like Jason Nesbitt's character, to be able to, like, you know how he was a kid when he was on that, when he got onto the bridge of that spaceship, of the Protector. He was a kid throughout that whole thing, and it's that childlike joy of discovery and just love of being like in a world of fantasy. That's what's so gripping about it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
That's what's gripping about acting too.
Yeah,
like I'm not an actor, but I'm sure that, like, as someone who is an actor, like I could be, maybe.
Hey, I have ideas, so we'll talk about that eventually. I gotta get some scripts written while we're under lockdown here, and then we'll talk about it.
But you would agree with that assessment, right? Like,
I 100% agree with that. Yeah. That's what makes it gripping, and also, I think. Shit, I lost my point. But I had one.
Did you?
I did.
At one point in time. I think we all have points at one point in time, and they just...
No, that was actually, like, I had one of those, like, hurtful, like, brain malfunctions. Like, it's gone. It's all gone.
That's okay.
Someone opened the file folder and just... Oh, my God. I remember. No, I got it. Oh, I got it.
Retrieve. All right. Come on.
I get goosebumps. And you made me think of this, because it's true. Just watching him be like a kid, literally, when he's like, do you guys want to see the ship?
Yeah.
Every time I already get goosebumps, but then when they actually all see it, I get a little teary-eyed, but also goosebumps, like full body goosebumps, just like, oh, it's like this movie is literally, oh yes,
and
he's just smiling.
Sigourney's face, the look on all their face, they were all just like, I can't believe this is happening. like what the fuck is going on?
When they all take their positions and they're just like, this is actually happening. Like, this is real. Holy shit. And yeah, because they're all so like blindly excited about the fact that it's actually happening, that they're not, they haven't stopped to think, okay, wait, we're actually going out into space. We just agreed to fight something, but obviously we know what happens when they find that out. Then they're all like, oh, hell no.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to die. That's my job. I don't have a last name. I don't want to die.
You have a last name, guy. Do I?
Rockwell, man.
Beautiful.
The guy wants to be a serious actor. Like, he wants to do more serious stuff. He almost turned it down too. But he is hilarious. He's just has such timing. Like
his comedic timing in everything that he's like. You watch him as the villain, and in Charlie's Angels, he's more straight villainous. But in Iron Man 2, he's got like a good like strike of comedy and villainy, and it's really funny.
He acts like he's a pompous rich man, and he plays that character well.
And he plays a good opposite to like Tony Stark, because he's like the
perfect.
But yeah, I think Sam Rockwell, part of being a good dramatic actor is also, I think, having the ability to transition into comedy or in and out of comedy, right? And a lot of serious actors got their start in comedy, so. I mean, look, another good example, John C. Reilly. There's another good example of an actor who can do if you watch The Hours,
yes,
The Hours, or
Chicago.
Yes, exactly. Well, and he's got a great voice too. That's the other thing. So, yeah, it's like this movie, in a way, because Sam Rockwell almost said no.
I got that song. It was Cellophane.
We're gonna have to do musicals eventually here. We got to do Phantom of the Opera and
Yeah. Sorry,
Phantom
I'm sorry.
of the Paradise. No,
when I think of Chicago, I always think of that song by John C. Reilly. That's besides the tango, the John C. Reilly song is like my favorite song.
Well, yeah, Cell Block Tango is like,
it's the song.
He had it anyway.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Oh shit. No, I think that this whole movie is almost about that, right? It's about like how acting isn't necessarily about what project you choose. It's about what you give to that project and what you bring to that project as an actor. That will elevate you or showcase your own skills. You know what I mean? Even when you think you're in the middle of a disaster. And I think that, it echoes that whole idea of the fear of typecasting. And Sam Rockwell literally embodied that because he actually almost turned down the role until before he was awful. Kevin Spacey convinced him to take it because he was like, listen, a lot of people do comedy before they get into the drama, kid. No, I don't know exactly how he said it, but obviously it was like something like that, to be like, listen, don't be a snob, basically.
Yeah.
This is still a solid
different
script.
Things.
Go for it.
Exactly. You know what? I will agree with that. My thought, and now I'm like my next question, that because I threw out your whole thing, is like comes back to fan and media studies. So how much of a fan do you have to be to deliver a good performance? I mean, in some ways, that's kind of what this movie is saying, is that you're a down and out actor who has played these roles over and over and over again, and it's a discovery of being a part of those roles again, jumping back into those roles and falling in love with those characters that you played for such a long time again. Right. So that kind of thing makes me think, like, some actors would go out and say, I hated that character, and they'll never play that character again. And then you see some actors say, well, I hated that character, and then they obviously jump into the next role because they jump, money.
Oh yeah.
So how much of a fan do you have to be of a character to become that character, to be on screen and be as real and genuine to that character?
Well, and see, the thing, I don't think that's mutually exclusive, right? Like, I don't think you have to be a fan of something to be in it and to give a good performance. But I think if you are, and on the other flip side of that coin, I don't think if you are a fan, that necessarily means you're going to be the best actor in a scene. You know what I mean? That doesn't, because sometimes fans, in fact, are the ones who overthink things and are like, I'm not doing it right. I can't, there's just, it just doesn't jive. So I think that can happen. But I think if you are a fan of something and you're, especially if you're in the director's chair, that's where you have the ability really to make sure something, I guess, is fandom worthy. Because I mean, I don't know. When it comes to sci-fi, we talk about whether a film is a Star Trek film or not, even though it is, for all intents and purposes, Star Trek, has the title, has all the characters, but we still debate to this day whether certain films are Star Trek films.
Star Trek films.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very true.
And in that case, too, we have a series where it's kind of weird because you have films directed by the actors themselves, but also films directed by directors who were already well known for things outside of those fandoms, but were apparently big fans of the source material, so they were like, I want a shot at this. Or in the case of J.J. Abrams, as we've discussed, a person who was not at all a fan who got the keys to the kingdom, and
he made a very competent film and pulled it off. That's true. No, so let's think about Galaxy Quest in a different kind of light, though. We were, as we said earlier, we were part of this as a part of a Star Trek film.
Right, exactly.
Star Trek film.
Right.
So what makes this a Star Trek film?
Right? I think you have, I think you're onto something. I do.
But I'm still weaving a thread here. Is it because this is a fan film?
Right.
Is that why it can be placed against? So when you start thinking of it as a fan film, let's go back to that, or my earlier question of the I can't even think of my question now.
What the question about
the idea of like actors embody
fan.
Yeah. So like to make a competent script, like this is obviously written by someone who is a fan of Star Trek and it's actually not even just written.
Right.
Like Jason Nesbitt, obviously
Robert
Tim
Gold,
Allen.
David Howard.
Tim Allen even on set like modeled a lot of his character off of William Shatner and some of his reactions, like that whole thing on the rock planet when they're looking for the beryllium sphere. It was very, very Star Trek. Right there. It was very like the whole thing was a homage to Kirk fighting the Gorgons on the rock planet.
100%.
So does that come into a factor as like a fan film?
I think you could argue. I think there's an argument to be made that this is a fan film. Sure. But on the other hand, I think what I really like about this movie is that it also manages to cement its own kind of narrative, and like it never feels too homage-y that it loses its own identity. I'm still invested in them as Galaxy Quest actors and as this idea of Galaxy Quest as a show. Because unlike Star Trek, it's not revived as soon or in the same, or not as soon, actually. I know there was a big gap between the original series and the Next Generation, but like that gap isn't as large in Galaxy Quest, and in Galaxy Quest, it's the original actors returning for a new series rather than totally new actors just in a future setting. So I think it really does things that intentionally cement it as its own universe, its own narrative, but still manages to really call back to and play on those key things from Star Trek specifically. And then also, I think by mixing those in with wider sci-fi tropes, it kind of like gives it a nice muralic quality where it's like, okay, it's not too Star Trek, but it's very clearly Star Trek, but it's not too Star Trek. So, which is why, if you watch this movie as just a general film viewer who has at least a general knowledge of what sci-fi is, at the very least, you can still enjoy it as a film, because it's like, Galaxy Quest, that's hilarious. Like, you're just invested in Galaxy Quest at that point. You can still get the goosebumps when they see the ship, because you're still like, they're seeing their ship for the first time in real life. Like, you still get that. It's weird. It's one of those where I think being fans of Star Trek and Star Wars ahead of time is great. It adds that extra impact for you, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, it's not. You know what? And that's the thing when you call it like a line, it can be placed beside Star Trek, and it can be placed in line with a Star Trek movie. But this is more of a love letter to sci-fi, as it is. I mean, it's become such a part of the cultural consciousness now, like for a film that didn't really do very well in its first week of box office, but that's because of its own marketing. Like they rushed this under the table for whatever reason, has its own fandom as equestrians, it has its own situated place within the sci-fi canon. If you want to call it that. Like, I don't know if anybody wants to still want to talk about the idea of canon, but
right.
Yeah, it's because you have Sigourney Weaver, who wasn't originally Harold Ramis. I think it was Harold Ramis, or it was one of the directors that were like, I do not want anybody from a previous sci-fi universe in this film. They didn't want, they wanted real actors coming in and saying into uncomfortable situations and giving uncomfortable performances. But then you had Sigourney Weaver, who is obviously a veteran of a lot of sci-fi films, Alien and Ghostbusters.
Yep.
That delivered really, and she delivered an awesome performance, a performance that she was thrilled to be a part of, to be able to play to be able to play a caricature of what female representation is in this in Star Wars or Star Trek and sci-fi.
Well, and we've talked about, because that is kind of like when you bring up the male gaze as it pertains to this film, I feel like that's where we're going to start running into the problems that sci-fi already runs into. But I think that's part of the point too, and that's almost part of the problem, because it's like they had to do it to make fun of it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's like,
because cleavage is a very big thing in sci-fi. That's like,
I wasn't even gonna go to the cleavage part, because the cleavage part was hilarious. Because that's something
funny, but I mean,
you know what? I never noticed that, which is weird. I never noticed that when I was a kid.
But even look at,
I never noticed it until the end. Like, I never noticed it until I was older. That her shirt goes gradually down. But I was mostly talking about, like, when I was thinking I wasn't gonna bring up cleavage yet. We were going to talk about cleavage, but I was going to talk about, like, how the fact that the entire ship does not run without her.
And that's a good point. So I think, I think that's important though to that argument, because it's like that's almost the counter argument, right? It's like they had to, on the one hand, to poke fun at the unnecessary cleavage, they had to have unnecessary cleavage. But then on the other hand, you also realize she is a very integral part of the ship working at all. Her voice is literally what makes it go and do the things that it does.
If she wasn't around, this mission would never be successful.
Yes. And I think by the end, that's the point, right? Is that they're all integral. Yeah, they all need each other, but that is such an important and empowering role for her to actually have in reality, even though at first it seems really tedious and jokey, right? It's like, she's just repeating what the computer says, but she's also the only one who can talk to the computer. Yeah. So it's like, then you realize, you're like, oh wait, but actually, you know,
it's not good. Yeah.
But no, I always think of, because whenever I think of sci-fi, sometimes I do think, oh yeah, unnecessary cleavage. Not unnecessary, but unnecessary, like, even like, a good example in Generations, and just in general with Klingon women, do they need a boob window? Does that actually practically make sense? That's kind of why I actually really like the redesign of the Klingons in Discovery, because it's based on
little bit, yeah.
Touches. So I'm like,
I don't know. I'm not going to excuse this because don't need a cleavage window. But I'm gonna assume that there was somebody on the ladder looking at the Klingon design and was like, well, how are you gonna, like, decipher which one's a man and which one's a woman?
Oh, come on.
I can just see someone saying that.
It was probably Rick Berman.
It's just like, well, which one? I don't know. They all look the same to me.
It was Rick Berman sitting at the table with the concept sketches in front of him. He was like, how can you tell that one's a lady? And then, you know, Bob, the costume designer, was like, well, you know, she's got the curve of breasts in her suit armor. Like, you can clearly see that. And she's got long hair. She's going to be played by a female actress. They'll probably be able to tell. And he's like, no. I don't get
boobs.
It. Yeah,
give me some boobs. You gotta show me those boobs.
Oh God! Oh, you're starting to sound like Mr. D. Trump there almost. We got to make them huge. Those boobs.
You gotta make them. Huge. They gotta. It's television. The audience won't respond unless there's boobs.
We got a lot of prepubescent boys watching these shows. If I'm going to be a producer on this new Star Trek, I want huge boobs.
It's got to be boobs everywhere.
Yeah, just boobs everywhere. No, but seriously, that's why I'm like, so in a sense they had to do it to make fun of it, but it's like it still makes you question in a cast that's mostly male. It's like, I think if you seriously broke this film down on an academic level, which I'm not totally going to do right now because I think that'd be a downer.
Yeah.
And this is our podcast, so we can do whatever the hell we want. I think it would get really depressing really quickly. So we're not going to go down that path. I think you have a really good point about her being integral to the ship. And yeah, I mean, ultimately that's what I have to say about that angle on this film. I think there's a lot more to be said. And that's all.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot more to be said of the oppression and subjugation of female bodies in sci-fi. It's not something that we're going to make fun of or make light on, but it's just not something that we're going to talk about today.
Well, exactly. Not. I don't think we can fully crack open that nut. I think we'd have to examine something that.
There's a long history if you want to get into,
and that's
sci-fi.
Just it too.
Like it's like you need a whole other podcast, and we're already at like 46 minutes. Seconds.
I was like, we're over
46 seconds.
Wow, that'd be bad. I was like,
well, we just loaded up the quantum
realm. What?
The fucking device now. I can't remember the name.
Oh,
the Omega device.
The Omega 13.
The Omega 13. Yeah, I fucked that up.
Activate the Omega 13.
Yeah, we just went back in time, cut out all things about females.
What is it? Is it 13? Is it 13 seconds? That's why it's called the Omega 13, or is it?
Yeah, it's 13 seconds. Which is
what an interesting concept. Yeah.
13 seconds to correct one single mistake.
I mean, that's why
the entire plot relies on this one device, that unknown device, because nobody knows what it does.
Well, it's classic, right? That's classic sci-fi. That's classic storytelling. The Deus Ex Machina at the end, like that. Fucking J.R.R. Tolkien and his eagles. He can go to hell. God damn it.
What the fuck, man? The eagles.
every time. In The Hobbit, the eagles. Bilbo and Gandalf get in the trees. The wargs come. Oh, the wargs start setting fire to the trees. Oh my God, they're going to die. Nope, eagles. The Battle of the Five Armies happens. Bunch of people are dying. Looks like they're all going to be screwed. Oh, no, eagles. Everybody stops fighting. Goodbye. Fucking Gandalf gets thrown off the fucking roof of a tower, and Saruman's like, and all of a sudden, eagle, boom. All right, cool.
That's it. Just fly the goddamn fucking ring and throw it into the mountain.
Why didn't they do that? Why didn't the Lord of the Eagles intervene?
Did we really need 3 movies to do this?
Why couldn't he pick up fucking Frodo and Sam and just carry them to Mordor? I mean, I guess Sauron probably with his eye could have like zapped them out of the sky or something, but
because nobody wants to watch that movie.
that 15-minute long Lord of the Rings where Frodo gets the ring and then gets picked up and then is in Mordor and is like, oh, that's like fucking Randall and Clerks 2, just like the first movie, the second movie, the third movie.
That is a good summary of those movies.
No, I'm actually a fan of the Lord of the Rings, but
so am I.
I can see, I know it is funny, right? Like I can see how other people watching those movies, it would very much feel like that, especially the extended editions, which I've seen all of, and it is, you do get numb. Your legs, your whole body kind of starts to go numb.
It's a long movie, and you have to watch them back to back. That's a feat. That's a feat of willpower right there, and that's something I cannot do.
Actually, I missed pieces of Return of the King. for reasons at the time.
Because Return of the let's just face it, Return of the King is just it isn't the strongest of the three.
Oh, it had nothing to do with being bored. It was quite the opposite, actually. And but it was still good. The parts I did see of that one were still really good. And
Ooh, there's a story here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I reading this wrong? Did you not have sex in the movie theater to Return to the King?
In the movie theater? God, no. I'm talking about the extended edition I watched on Netflix with my girlfriend at the time.
Ah,
yes, that happened. But
right, no handies in the movie theater.
That happens as much anymore. Mr. Clint over there. We don't have. I don't know what's happening up in Winnipeg when you were growing up. In
lots of good stuff.
No doubt. No, I mean, when we were kids, we used to. I mean, I didn't, but I used to hear about people making it in theaters and stuff. But I also wasn't entirely abreast of the handies situation. Well, that's a lie.
Abreast.
I definitely would have liked to have been abreast of the situation a bit better, but
I'll just say 8-legged freaks. Yeah, it was a good movie.
Really? Out of all the movies, then again, no, I can't judge. Hannibal Rising.
There you go.
Literally during the scene where he cuts the dude's face off and cooks it in front of him. He was screaming in the background. That was crazy.
Has this podcast gone completely off the rails now?
Yeah, we went. But you know what? It's because Galaxy Quest literally is one of those movies that touches on just pop culture in general. On pop culture in general, it does.
You said it. It definitely touches you, and it's nice. The cockles of your heart.
Thank you. Yes. Almost, maybe even deeper in the subcockle region. No. It's like, fucking goddamn it! It just reminded me of that fucking scene in School of Rock that kills me every fucking time. Where Jack Black's like, "Your kids have touched me, and I've touched them," and all the parents are just standing there quietly for a second, and then the one mom's just like, "Oh my god!" and all the parents just start getting so pissed off. They chase him out of the fucking school. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh my god.
Yes, this movie touched me in ways I'd never been touched before. And
yeah.
I'll never be able to repay it for that because, I'd have to go to Los Angeles and touch Tim Allen. I'd have to touch Sigourney Weaver. I'd have to touch
and I don't think Sigourney Weaver would appreciate that.
No.
I don't know about Tim Allen, though.
Tim Allen probably...
I think he'd give you a hug. He would... Yeah. Fuck away.
Yeah. But I feel like Tim Allen would be like, especially if I came at him and I was like, listen, the Santa Claus is my life, man. I need you. The internet's being wonky.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting.
It's all good. That's why we edit.
That's right. And go.
Or maybe. I don't know. It's like you keep fucking freezing on me. God damn it. That is... What the fuck? I can't wait. I'm leaving that in. That's not coming out, buddy. I feel like, Sigourney Weaver, if I bought her a really nice dinner and, asked her to marry me. No, not really.
I would say no.
Yeah. I mean,
I'd say, I'm married.
Apparently Tony Shaloub played his character this whole movie like he was a stoner.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's beautiful. Because it totally, it comes off. I like it.
How does Tony Shaloub play an Asian man? That's
that too. Fred Kwan. Well, and see, this is the thing. The unspoken, not unspoken, but because I didn't realize that, really. I didn't think about it.
No, but I don't think anybody really did until I saw that a lot of sense. Played it as a stoner.
Right.
Because like he's just like, okay, well, my character's already zany enough. I might as well just play him as whatever.
Right, yeah.
I can think of.
Well, apparently they were inspired by like David Carradine in Kung Fu or whatever. Like,
okay,
I forget what that show was called, but that was apparently what they were inspired by. Oh my God!
We'll probably just have to edit that last 5 minutes out and just say goodbye right now.
I know.
Just cut it short. Just cut it short.
We're getting
put a
jankified. I mean, on the plus side, right? We have our live web shows that we are starting Tuesdays and Thursdays. So people can catch us on there anyway to keep up with us in terms of what we're watching. They don't even have to just tune in here, which is great.
That's right.
And you are putting out a lot of content on Midnight Dreamscapes in terms of reading your own poetry, obviously, which is really cool. I've been watching.
Hey.
Oh my God.
Are you still recording?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to push stop right now.
On
Audacity. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to stop there too.
And I'll just if it's super bad, we'll just record our own outros.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be rough on the video end here. Yeah, but I'll find a way to make it work. Like I'll do something funny with it.
Yeah, or you know what we could do is just pre-record like us doing our outros. Is like you can find us at, or we don't even have to do that anymore, and just put it up on the screen now. You know,
that's a good point. We could either do a pre-recorded version of us doing it, or we just toss it up on screen without even saying anything, right? Because at this point, people who are coming to our channel are hopefully going to go back and watch our earlier episodes and see, you know, this is where it started at least, like, you know, but they can also, it'll say follow at the bottom of the screen and like all the information they need to know. It's not just going to be random and uncontextualized. I'm not just going to throw pictures of penises all over the screen. No, I want as many frozen and messed up versions of this conversation as possible. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.